Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. We're about to get started. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the chair of this committee. We have a full complement of Land Use Committee members tonight, whether in the chamber or online. In the chamber, we have Councillor Block from Ward 4, Councillor Lucas from Ward 2, Councillor Leary from Ward 1, Councillor Lobovitz from Ward 6, and Councillor Laredo from Ward 7. Again, I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm from Ward 2. Online, we have Councillor Farrell from Ward 8 and Councillor Downs from Ward 5. We just have a few items before us tonight. The first one is a consistency ruling, a request from the Inspectional Services Department to weigh in and just talk about, review, and give some advice. It's not a vote. And that is on a project at 1092-1098 Chestnut Street in Upper Falls. I believe we will be hearing from our planning department first on that. Joe?
Yep. Good evening. Joe O'Donoghue, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. And I'll be talking about 1092, 1098 Chestnut Street. So before we get too much further, there's kind of three routes this thing can go in the future. This is an approved special permit, and there are some differences between what was presented at the special permit, what was approved through the building permit process, and then what has been constructed on site. So there's three options. One is that the committee could provide input to the commissioner that will help the commissioner decide of inspectional services decide that this is in fact consistent with the special permit. And they will move forward pretty immediately towards their certificate of occupancy. The second is that the petitioners could make some changes as required by the Commissioner of Inspectional Services or voluntarily that bring it into compliance with the special permit and match the plans more closely. And then the last option is that they come back after the Commissioner of Inspectional Services rules that this is not consistent. They come back to the Land Use Committee for an amendment to their special permit. So before I talk any more about that process, I'll talk about what those differences are. Before I get into those specific differences, this is an overview of what the site looks like. It is in a multi-residence district, so it has a special permit to be able to do two single-family attached buildings with 2 units each. As you can see on the layout, there's 2 units that are closer to the street on Chestnut Street. Unit 1 was kind of the original house, and that's been adapted. And there's those 2 dwellings in that we'll call building 1. And then over to the east on the site further away, there's 2 units that we'll call building 2. So there are some differences in the height is the first thing. As you can see from the cut and paste that I did from those plans. Originally, we had a 31.6 foot height that was approved on the special permit and the building permit stage. And since then, it is currently at 33.3 feet. There's a bit of a typo where it's listed as 34.3. So that is 1.7 feet higher than what was originally on the permit. They've explained that that is due to them pointing out just the height of the original building on or sorry, not pointing out the height of the original building on the original special permit and building permit plans. And on the as-built, they put the height of that building. However, on building 2, there was nothing built, and we still have a 2.5-foot height difference, with it originally being 31.1 feet, and on the as-built being 33.6 feet. Now, just for reference, the maximum allowed height under the zoning ordinance is 36 feet total. The next difference is the retaining walls. As you can see on the left, we have the plans that were presented at building permit, where the retaining wall is maybe somewhere around 5 feet set back on most sides, to the north and to the east and to the south. And then it starts to move closer, especially on the north side, or on the left in the diagram, and on the south side, it is right up against the property line. None of the wall is over 4 feet, as I'm sure we're aware with the recent changes, that having walls, and of course this was approved for building permit before those changes took effect, but with them being so close to the setbacks, they would have needed further relief if any sections of the wall were over 4 feet, but they are not. However, that is about a 5-foot movement, and it is right up against the property line to the south. Next and last issue is that there was a proposed ramp attached to building 1 as part of, we assume to be a universal design type idea. And then on the as-built, that ramp is not there anymore. It was not in the conditions that they make that unit universal design or include that ramp. However, it is something different between those plans. I will turn it back over to any other staff that have any corrections or additions to that, as consistency is not something we see every land use committee, and turn it back to the committee as well.
Thank you, Joe. Do any other members of the planning department want to say something about this before we bring it into committee?
I will just add that we pointed out it looks like the finished grade increased by less than a foot for each building. I know that's been a topic of interest lately, so we wanted to make that clear, which we also put in the memo.
Thank you, Ms. Wewell. That's true. Before we do hear from the committee, I want to acknowledge and welcome and identify a couple of other members of our city staff who are with us tonight. We have our clerk, Scott Matthews, here in the chamber with us. Also online, we've just heard from Katie Wewell. Jonah Temple from the law department is here, and Kat Kemet also. So we've got several city staff members here to help direct us and answer questions. Let's talk about this. I'm going to set it up. I think Joe really did. This is not something we vote on. This is a review, a discussion, and advice that the Commissioner of ISD Inspectional Service Department is asking for. He has the ability to make these decisions himself, but when it's not clear to him that the proposal is consistent, he comes to us for our opinion, and that's what we're going to talk about and feedback for him. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. So there's 3 things that we have to not vote on, but rule on, let's say. Is it consistent with the proposed plans with what was approved? The first thing is building height. I believe it's going to be a couple of feet higher, and that was due to the change in grade. But it's still beneath the 36 feet, which is the maximum allowed. So I think that is consistent. I would have voted for it if it was 31 feet, 32 feet, 33 feet, or 34 feet. I'll skip the retaining walls and just go on to the ramp. I don't recall much conversation a couple of years ago when we voted on this project with regards to the ramp. but it's a good catch by inspectional services to notice that it wasn't built, and I have no issue with that not being constructed. The retaining wall, I do have a question for planning. The approved plans had the retaining wall at 5 feet away from the setback. Is that correct, Mr. Iadinisi? Sorry.
Yeah, that's correct. They were somewhere around 5 feet setback, but they were all under 4 feet on those plans, so it was not requiring any further relief at that point.
Okay, and now it is how close to the abutting property line?
At some points on the plans, it looks like there's not really any sort of separation at all in between that retaining wall and the lot line.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't dimension it for us, but it looks to be pretty close to the property line.
Okay, so this is, it's not above 4 feet, but I don't think that part is consistent. That's why I am stuck on this one. So, the ramp and the building height, fine. Retaining wall, that is not consistent with the approved plan. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. Next, I'm going to go to Councilor Downs and then Councilor Laredo.
Thanks. This is in my ward, and I did go by today. And I agree with Councilor Lucas on the height. They didn't raise the building, they renovated the building, building 1, and building 2 being the same height as building 1. And from the street, you don't really see the building 2 looming over building 1, so that one doesn't bother me. I do remember the discussion about making 1 unit adaptable so that it could be either visitable or bought by somebody with mobility issues and could be converted into a unit that would be fully accessible. That's still possible. As it is, it's just some foundation plantings, and that can be moved and can still be constructed if the owner wants it. So I don't have a problem with that. I went out to look at the retaining walls, and to me, they look not only to be very close to the property line, but also they look to be more than 4 feet. I'm not a short person, but they seem to be pretty high to me. And so I'd like to see this finished. I'd like to see it occupied. It's otherwise a lovely development and very close to what we had approved. But I worry about the precedent we set if we start moving a lot of earth around and then calling that okay. I don't think it harms the neighborhood, so as a special permit, I'd be inclined to give forgiveness. But it just is a little bit too close to it's in the setback, it's a little too close to the neighbors. And I don't think it's necessary. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Downs. Councilor Laredo.
So let me
President
just kind of give you some perspective as to how I personally view consistency rulings. I always ask myself, if this project had come in as built, would we have voted approval? That's number one. And for me, that's easy here. I would have voted approval. I'm not, I mean, I'm taking everyone at their word. I hear what Councilor Downs said about the height of the retaining wall, but if our planning department is representing that it's under 4 feet, then that's what we go by. So I think that's the standard we use, not, our kind of own internal judgment. But more importantly, when I do a consistency ruling, again, would we have approved this? And is this so different than what we approved in the first instance. As far as the height goes, you know, I think a foot or two is really pretty de minimis. The ramp, I think, is a non-issue. The key there, it is accessible to folks. It's an accessible unit. And if somebody who is, needs to use a wheelchair, for example, can put in a ramp, but if someone buys that unit and doesn't need a wheelchair to get in, but otherwise has some mobility issues, and there's certainly folks like that, that unit meets the requirements. So I have no problems with that either. And I don't have a problem with the retaining wall. I don't, you know, it's a modest change. It's not that great. I don't see it affecting, from what I'm understanding, I don't see it affecting the neighborhood, the neighbors, or anything else. So I would find this personally to be consistent. Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the comments of my colleagues on this. The only real concern I had was the retaining walls being different and so close. And I guess I just want to know how that happened and why it happened, and you know, if it's a reasonable explanation. I'm hearing that it's not. It's close to the neighbors, but it's otherwise really not bothering anybody. It's just, I think people should play by the rules, and if something changes, I'd like to know why and understand it better. So if anyone can comment on that, I would appreciate it.
Good questions. I had them myself. I wonder if the petitioner and/or his attorney would like to come to the microphone and respond to some of these questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I just want to ask one question. Are we talking about the left-hand wall or the right-hand wall? Because they are different. The wall on the right, which extended well beyond what was shown, was done because there's an existing wall virtually on the lot line on the neighbor's side that is deteriorating. And so it was actually a benefit to that neighbor to actually locate that new wall inside the lot line as close to that one as possible. So if you were talking about that one, that's the explanation there. On the other side, there was a 5-foot separation, and I think it was reduced to 2 or 2.5 feet, and largely done to basically create more yard space. It's not on the lot line. I think there was some question raised about whether it is on the lot line. It is not on the lot line. That's my answer or explanation for the walls. I would point out that if one looks at the site plan, topographical site plan, you will see the distinct, 15 to 16 feet elevation from the front to the back, and the difficulties of basically building on the slope of a hill. And I think there was certainly no intent to do anything, not approved, but you largely have to make conditions in the field based upon the conditions that exist. And this site was a very difficult site in which to construct. So I think that's the best explanation, unless you have something else to say?
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Hi, Rick Sewell. I'm the owner of the property. I just brought a couple of photos that I'd like to share that show that my wall is not on the property line. It's like 3 feet away, and because I wanted to be clear that, and if you want to look at them, I'm happy. I took them today because I thought it'd be important. And as my attorney Terry said, the lot was difficult. It was 18 feet from the rear of the lot to the front sidewalk, and actually from the rear lot to the back of building 2, it was 11 feet. So it was a challenge, but the biggest thing is we kept the under 4-foot wall retaining, and we wanted to make sure that, I know that was important, but not create a slope that would cause water problems for the new owners. So that would be our answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sewell. I assume that when you say you brought plans to share, they're just that copy, so that's nothing that anyone can see. Okay. Are there any other comments? Yes, Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in the ramp. Was the question for planning through the chair, was the ramp a condition of the special permit, or was it something else?
Sorry, go ahead, Katie.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Joe.
I was gonna say, I think Joe has it, but I did work on the special permit the first time around. And when I looked back, I noticed that during the public hearing, the plans changed to include the ramp. And I think that was at the request of a former counselor, and probably encouraged by the committee at the time. So because it was shown on the plans, we probably didn't think we needed to include the condition because the site plans essentially get locked in and are what we use to evaluate building permit plans on and further along as the as-built.
I see. So the site plan itself showed the ramp. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay. All right.
That's my recollection also. I was at that meeting, and it was our former
Sure.
Councillor Bowman who raised it. I think it was an understanding, but did not get into writing as a condition that this ramp was going to be provided. So in a way, one might say it was mislabeled on the submitted and approved plan, which said proposed ramp. So some of us thought that that ramp would be built as part of the project. The developer and his attorney say that was never the intention, and we don't have it in writing that it was.
Sure. And I understand that it is buildable if that's desired by future owner. Oh, that's it. Thanks.
That's
Chair.
it, thank
Yep.
you. Anyone else? No? I'll just say before we don't really vote on this. If necessary, we could take a straw vote, but I'll say I'm hearing generally agreement that this is something we would have voted in favor of if it was presented this way initially. For me, I do not enjoy when we have somebody come back with 3 or possibly 4 changes of consistency and went ahead and built things that were out of compliance with the previously approved plans. I do agree that the height is really not an issue. It's too bad it's not the same as what was presented, but it's still under what's allowable. We probably would have said yes to that. The retaining walls, let's hope and assume that they are under 4 feet. Councillor Downs did not have her tape measure with her. I assume that our inspectional services department will do that before they issue a building permit. The ramp, mislabeled. I had spoken to the petitioner earlier this week. He told me he was willing to build it. I'm not hearing that here tonight, so I think we're going to leave that for the future. The grade change, something that was slightly pointed out, and I think it was pointed out because we're seeing more and more of this on other projects too, where grade is different than what was originally intended or shown. I don't like when there are 3 or 4 things like this that come back for forgiveness. However, I agree with President Laredo that these are all, in a way, de minimis enough that we probably would have voted to approve this at the time. So, despite not being happy with the petitioner and his attorney for not asking for permission ahead of time rather than coming back for forgiveness, it would be my suggestion that the ISD commissioner move ahead too. Is there anyone else who would like to say things in a different way for when the ISD commissioner looks for our input on this, which is not a vote? I don't think we need to take a vote. I think we have a pretty clear sense of the committee. In which case, go forward, Mr. Sewell, Mr. Morris. Next time, please try and be in compliance, and you don't have to come back to us. The second item on our agenda is a request for a special permit. It's a request to extend non-conforming use for improvements to the clubhouse pavilion, a snack shack, and to amend previous special permits at the Woodland Golf Club, number 234-24. Let's hear from planning on this.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kat Kemet. I am a senior planner for the city. This is petition number 234-24, a special permit for 1897 and 1947 Washington Street. This site is known as the Woodland Golf Club, and it has been open and operating as a legally non-conforming use in a residential district since the early 1900s. The club is proposing several changes here to the site, including reconfiguring golf paths, removing and reconstructing 2 small structures on the site, some site work and regrading, and renovating the dining pavilion. Because no dimensional controls are established in the ordinance for a clubhouse use, the petitioner is seeking a determination of the appropriateness for the setbacks for the proposed canopy on the existing pavilion and the snack shack, which is the relief that is needed in this amendment. The site has several special permits and amendments already, so if this petition is approved, all those conditions will remain in effect. This will just be another amendment. We have consolidated the past conditions into one document, which was attached as a draft in the packet for this meeting. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed amendments. If the site that results from these amendments will adversely impact the neighborhood, if the amendments will create a nuisance or a serious hazard for vehicles and pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and if the extension of the nonconforming use will be substantially more detrimental than the existing nonconforming use is to the neighborhood. This is an aerial view of the area in question here. The golf club site includes several large parcels that span the single residence 1 and single residence 2 districts. The club property as a whole is bisected by the green line tracks, but the parcels we're looking at are here. The majority of the surrounding area is zoned residential, with the exception of some manufacturing and business districts nearby. Vehicular access is provided via a paved driveway on Washington Street, which leads to a parking area for patrons and visitors for the club. Several structures related to the operations of the club are scattered on the site, and there's some fencing along the Washington Street frontage and some paved paths for golf carts on the site as well. Because some of the work proposed lies within a buffer zone of the Runaway Brook, which cuts through part of the site, the Newton Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over portions of the site. The petitioners have already presented this plan to the Conservation Commission, and they have received an order of conditions for their work proposed here. The club is proposing to modify the tee complex near the first hole of the golf course by making changes to the grading of the tee area and the driving range. The area dedicated to putting green and driving range in this area will also increase, and the shape will be modified a bit. So that is these areas here. The small starter building in this area will be removed and replaced, and non-permeable pavers installed in the immediate area around the new starter building. So in the existing plan that's here and the proposed plan that is here. The petitioners have said that the final design for that building has not yet been finalized, but they anticipate that it will be a bit larger than what's in place now. We recommend limiting the size of the structure to be comparable to what exists now if this petition is approved, and we request the petitioner just finalize that design in their plans. The cart paths in this area will be slightly reconfigured and will be repaved with asphalts, and a parking area for carts will be added near the starter building here. Approximately 750 square feet of additional impervious surface will be added near the first hole in total. In a narrative provided by the petitioner, they stated that these changes are necessary because the stairs to access the tee box need repair, and these improvements will enhance the safety and accessibility of the area. So because the regrading of the area near the hole is not near a wetland resource area and it is set far back from abutting properties, we anticipate that this work should have a minimal impact on the neighborhood. There is also some work proposed near the fourth hole. The club proposes to demolish the existing snack shack near the fourth hole and replace it with a new building and seating area. The new snack shack will be relocated further away from Runaway Brook, and it will be a bit northeast of where the building is now. So the current building is here, and in the proposed plan, it will be up here. The building will be 15 feet tall and consist of 350 square feet with patio seating and pavers located outside. Approximately 350 square feet of pavers will be added. Portions of the existing cart paths in these area will be removed and replaced in kind. Some will be removed entirely, and there will be a new 5.5 foot wide path added. So overall, the work proposed here will result in a reduction in impervious square area of around 275 square feet. We note that the location of the new snack shack is going to be pretty close to the lot line and the MBTA right-of-way. It's 5.5 feet from the MBTA's right-of-way, but it is far out of view for residential abutters. We're not really concerned with the setback because the abutter that would be impacted by that setback is the golf course itself. So not really a major concern there. And the MBTA will require permission, some review because it is in the right of way, but it's not so close that it should pose any sort of danger or major concern. So the only other thing to note here is that based on the plans provided, there will be several trees that need to be removed to accommodate the new snack shack's location. So we would just request some clarity on what trees are going to be removed and what the plan is to replace those trees. Last sort of area of work here is at the terrace pavilion. The petitioner proposes to cover the existing outdoor dining terrace at the clubhouse building, which is near the center of the site, with a canopy. The proposed work will square off and enlarge that rounded area on the existing terrace, and it will reconfigure the retaining wall there. They will add some hardscape near the front corner of the clubhouse, and the loading area will be slightly reconfigured. So this will have a bigger service area. And as proposed, the work near the terrace will have an increase of 1,600 square feet of additional impervious area around here. They will add a new retaining wall and a 4-foot tall fence made of white PVC near the service area. And the number of seats for the dining area is 90. There is no increase associated with this work, so it will remain at 90 seats. And for the setbacks, the front setback of the pavilion will remain the same. That is currently 545 feet. The side setbacks will also remain the same. That's at 338 feet. Rear setback will decrease a little bit from 1,200 feet to 1,138 feet. So there is a bit of a reduction in that rear setback, but we believe that it is pretty minimal, and that small reduction will not have an impact on the abutters because it is so significant still, even with that small reduction. So overall, there's a lot of little changes proposed here in this petition, but generally we're not concerned with the proposed extension of the non-conforming use. The golf course has been operating here for several decades, seemingly in harmony with the residential uses, so no major concern there. And the increase in hardscape associated with this work is pretty minimal in relation to the large amount of open space on the site. The setbacks seem appropriate, and the work is near the interior of what is essentially a very large site, so it shouldn't have a major impact on abutters. That is all I have for now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kemet. Is there anybody from Woodland or the petitioner who would like to speak in addition to what planning just said?
I believe they will be joining us. Yeah, here we go.
Hi, my name is John Randall, and I'm a member at the Woodland Golf Club, and I'm happy to run you through some more detail and answer any specific questions. I think there were 2 or 3 questions posed in the memo that we received, specifically the size of the starter shack. We don't anticipate the size of that shack being any larger than 150 square feet or 12 by 12, and we would be willing to stipulate to that. And if we, for some reason, wanted a larger, size, we would come back for that approval. On the jumping over to the 4th hole improvements, you're correct. We did meet with Concom and received our order of conditions. On the plan that you had there are 4 large trees against the tracks. The plans that we have proposed, I think it's two 20-inch pine trees and an 18-inch pine tree. We, through our work with Concom, have agreed to replace 6 trees on site. And again, we would comply with the Newton tree bylaw, if approved. So I think that would be a stipulation. We understand that we'd have to work through the tree warden on the sizing and replacement of the trees, but through the order of conditions, we've already agreed to replace 6 trees in location. It's actually on the plan as part of the order of conditions. And then answering the MBTA question, we're very familiar with the MBTA based on our adjacency. And with the recent completion of our racket center that also went through the special permit process, we again, in that project, held a 5-foot offset there and then went through. We are outside the right of way with that project and with this project. And, we went through there's basically a license agreement and a review process that we are prepared to go through on this project as well. But as was said earlier, we don't anticipate any challenges from the MBTA. The track height is approximately 10 feet above, what the ground floor of the new snack shack would be. So we don't anticipate any sort of impact from our building to them, but we do anticipate going through that area of influence review and receiving an eventual approval. So I believe those are the 3 questions that I identified in the memo, but happy to answer any more questions. And Bob Buckley from Reimer is also here to answer any of the more technical questions. And I do believe that we were also hoping or intending to wrap an approval into a larger special permit for the entire site to make future projects a little bit simpler. And I'm not sure if that's part of the discussion tonight, but I would definitely hand that over to Bob Buckley.
Madam Chair, for the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein. First of all, your staff did a wonderful job summarizing the project. Makes my life a lot easier. I think there's one fundamental concept behind all of the suggested changes we're making, which is safety. All of those were premised on a safety concern. The first tee, it's an elevated tee. That access is difficult for certain members, people like myself as they age, and it needs repair. So this was an opportune time to do something to bring down the grade so it is more of a natural transition to the course. The snack shack on the 4th hole is situated as a bullseye, and there are people moving around and carts moving around constantly. So the decision was made to take it out of harm's way and protect the members and guests and try to enhance that area. And the final was by covering the patio in inclement weather, people aren't scattering. So all of the improvements are premised on a fundamental concept of enhancing safety, which means that we're not increasing the intensity of use or the impacts. And as the staff indicated, the improvements are so far into the bowels of the course that we doubt they'll be visible or have any impact on abutting properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. If there are no other comments from the petitioners, we will take this into committee for questions and comments. Public, other members of the public? I didn't see any hands up. Nothing yet? Feel free to raise your hands if it occurs to you. We're going to take it into committee now. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this one's pretty straightforward and frankly pretty easy for me. These are all changes within a very large site. They're not going to affect anybody else whatsoever. They're actually going to be improvements to the golf course, which is great, and I'm fine with this. I do applaud the planning department for taking the time to put this in a single special permit. We've talked about that at length on multiple occasions in this committee on the past. It is far easier for petitioners, it's far easier for planning, and it's far easier for us if we have a single consolidated special permit for a site project like this, or a site like this, which is subject to multiple special permits. So again, I applaud that, and I'm ready to, it's Councilor Bloch's ward, so I'll let him take the lead on it, but I certainly support this. Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also have no problems with this, this project, which is based on safety and enhancing the experience of the members. The only thing I wanted to ask Mr. Buckley or Mr. Randall was, in terms of the increase of the impervious surface, did you think about any ways to reduce it with less concrete, perhaps, or pavers? Did that ever come up, or is that something you could consider?
Through the chair, with respect to the area where the resource areas were, which is the fourth hole before the Conservation Commission, we actually had a decrease in impervious surface there. That was where we tried to focus the efforts.
Okay. But there's an increase by the terrace of 1,600 square feet.
Right, because it was squared off. Currently the terrace has a rounded edge on either end, so it was squared off, and that added the area. And again, I mean, it is a modest amount, but we did spend some time. But to do the terrace properly, we had to square off those edges.
But I think Councilor Leary's point is, did you consider using pervious paving material for that?
We discussed, alternatives. Our existing materials are a cast in place concrete. So matching that is really where we ended up from an aesthetic and safety perspective, to have a consistent look, primarily around the terrace area. As Mr. Buckley stated, we really focused on around the resource area, and made a conscious effort to make sure that went negative. So we did put a lot more, I would say, thought around the resource area, but we were looking to try to match and be consistent with our existing clubhouse paving surfaces.
Okay, thank you. You've answered that well. Councilor Farrell, I just want to be sure that you meant to take your hand down.
Thank you, Chair. I did. Councilor Leary asked my questions. I was a little concerned about the number of times that non-pervious materials were mentioned, and I was about to ask that same question. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Farrell. I have a funny, maybe superficial question for Mr. Randall. And
okay.
Mr. Buckley, maybe I heard wrong or read wrong, but what is a starter shack?
I can answer that. So at most golf courses, there is a small building that houses a person who manages the golfers who are proceeding from the practice area onto the first tee, to make sure that they're on time and get off okay, and they're not hitting into the group ahead of them. That shack is it's again small. It's not anything more than a computer for seeing the times that are there, and then having, let's call it, implements that are consistent with golf, whether it's tees or markers, and some and scorecards. So it's a very small building, a sundry to the use of a golf course.
That makes so much sense. You can tell I'm not a golfer when I
No,
ask that question.
fair question. Very fair question.
It's also very beneficial for crowd control, so some people don't cut in line.
I think it sounds to me like a very important job, and if I were that person, I would want a little roof over my head sometimes. So thank you. Councilor Bloch, would you like to say something?
I would love to move approval. Do we need to close the public hearing first?
Yes, we do.
So let's move to close the public hearing.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And your next motion?
Move approval of the petition.
Thank you. Councillor Block has moved approval, and I'm going to assume that includes a mention about in conformance with the tree ordinance about the replacement of those 6 trees.
Yes, absolutely.
A quick correction, it's 3 trees, but we already have 6 trees proposed as part of the Concom, but we would, if we have to true up additional inches, we would also do that as well. Sorry for interrupting.
Not an interruption, just a good clarification. I'm sure planning and Concom will take care of wording that properly. I just wanted to be sure it was going to be in writing. We've already seen once tonight what happens when things aren't in writing.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're ready to take a vote on this. I too do not have a problem with any of it. I'm very happy that these various and assorted previous special permits will be consolidated for simplicity's sake for the future. So I'm going to vote in favor also. Roll call. Oh, sorry, that's true. Findings and conditions, yes.
Sorry to jump the gun there a little bit, maybe.
I did.
For findings, we have 1. The site in an SR1 district is an appropriate location for the project as designed because the proposed work is set far into the property with minimal visibility from nearby dwellings and public rights of way. 2, the project as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the improvements will result in a negligible percentage increase in impervious surface due to the large size of the site. 3, the project as designed will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because vehicular access and car parking for the facility will remain the same, and the renovation will improve the pedestrian accessibility within the site. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. And 5, the proposed extension of the non-conforming use will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing use is because the use on this site predates the zoning code. The work proposed will improve the functionality of the site, and the setbacks proposed are sufficient to ensure the increase in building size and impervious area will not harm the neighborhood. There are a couple more conditions here than we normally see because we did bring some over from the previous amendments. So we have plan referencing, previous conditions will remain in effect, and a couple of sort of quirky ones brought over. Use of the parcel's driveway on Washington Street shall be used only for maintenance and service vehicles. Walsingham Street shall not be used to supply, service, or provide patrons to the snack bar during its construction or subsequent operation. The hours of operation for the snack bar shall be limited to the hours of between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The property owner shall maintain landscaping materials and the site in good condition and shall annually evaluate the new and existing landscaping covered by the special permit and replace all dead or diseased plantings with comparable materials, and the standard building permit conditions and occupancy conditions. We can add in that they need to comply with the tree ordinance, but that will remain the case regardless.
Thank you, Ms. Kim.
Madam Chair, can I ask a clarification on condition 3?
Sure, what's your question?
The use of the parcel's driveway on Washington Street shall be used only for maintenance service vehicles? The main entrance is on Washington Street.
We have 2 entrances, so we probably do need to clarify that. There's a service entrance that was part of the racket center that exists, but our main entrance is on Washington Street, so we do need a clarification there.
That condition was brought over verbatim from a previous order.
You could.
Right, but it was in relation to the access drive that was shown on that set of plans.
You could.
Yep. So we do ask that the applicant always kind of review conditions, and if they
Okay.
want to tweak them, planning doesn't have the discretion to do that. Only the committee and the applicant can request that. So we can make that tweak on the spot here if you have alternate language.
Madam Chair.
I was just going to say one thing, and then Councillor Block, you could, if you want to explain this, you could say use of the parcel's westernmost driveway. If you want to differentiate the main driveway on Washington from that service driveway, if that seems appropriate to the petitioner and to the planning department. Counselor Block.
I was just wondering if it was Grove Street that was referred to for the maintenance service vehicles. There's a driveway off of Grove.
That's for maintenance trucks. I don't
that-
think so, but
just-
planning, could you address that question?
No, I think this was the most recent special permit where, was it the pickleball courts?
Yeah,
And
so,
Yes.
Yeah,
so
perhaps-
we could specify that parcel perhaps and be more specific, because I do see how it is
It would be
specific.
southern or western entrance, I think. I'm not sure the exact, it's
Okay.
probably more southern
or,
than it is.
or another way would be the shared driveway with the MBTA.
Okay.
I think I'm definitely clear on that, but I didn't feel comfortable making that change without some conversation about it. But it seems clear that that is referencing that specific parcel rather than the site as a whole.
I think we'll leave it to you to work out the terminology. On condition number 4, is there a Walsingham Street?
Yeah, I don't
Thank
know
you.
that street. Where is that?
There is a Walsingham Street.
Okay, that's not just a typo.
No.
I just wanted to be sure. Okay, any other questions on the conditions?
Yes, on number 5, I would request that would be for hours, standard golf course hours of operation, which is essentially 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Planning, I'm assuming this was also brought forward from previous conditions, timing hours?
Yep, this
Correct.
has all been consolidated from prior special permits that had these conditions in at the request of the council. So, we're happy to amend them, but we do need that sort of request to come from the applicant and with approval from the council.
It sounds to me like the applicant is asking for that change right now.
If this is
Comments?
the venue to make that a request, I would make that tonight.
You are making it. Counselor Block?
I really wasn't prepared for generalized condition discussions, but since we've sort of fallen in this direction, I'll just mention that there was a cleanup of the Grove Street property outside the fence, but between the fence and the curb that you did about a month ago, and we really appreciated it. It had accumulated quite a bit of debris. I don't think originating from the golf course, but wherever it originated. And I think maintaining that and just having your maintenance staff check that stretch of property maybe once a month to see if debris needs to be cleaned up. It's not part of your conditions, and you just responded to a request to do that. You were very prompt about it, so we appreciate that.
I think they will listen to that. That is not within the scope of this item at all, but I'm sure the Woodland people are hearing you on that. Is there any discussion about switching the hours of that snack shack from 9 to 5 to 7 to 6? Councillor Lucas? Oh, you raised your hand.
That was me giving the motion of whatever. It's not, I don't think that's going to be a big deal. So, yeah.
Are there any objections from anyone on the council?
I like it when snacks are open in longer periods of
Okay,
time.
we do not have a problem, this committee does not have a problem with changing those hours. So let's reflect that in the conditions. You want coffee at 7:15? Okay, I think now we're ready to take a vote.
Counselor Block?
Aye.
Counselor Downs?
Aye.
Counselor Farrell?
Aye.
Counselor Kelly?
Aye.
Counselor Leary?
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz?
Aye.
Counselor Lucas?
Aye.
Counselor Laredo?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Madam Chair, on behalf of the club, I'd like to thank the staff for their diligent efforts in the committee's consideration this evening.
You're welcome. Go forward. Par 4.
Thank
Or
you,
2
everyone.
or 3, I don't know. Okay, we only have one more item before us tonight. I'm going to tee this up a little because it's something different than what we usually do and see. It's item number 233-24, which incorporates a previous special permit number 394-22 at 136 to 144 Hancock Street in Auburndale, also known as the Walker Center. This is not a vote on a special permit. This is a request, a docketed request for a discussion by the Ward 4 councilors and the attorney for the project to have what I would call an informal update and discussion on the proposed plan changes that they will be bringing forward and filing officially with the city. I see the petitioner here, and he's going to give a brief, perhaps 5-minute update. I know there has been a lot of interest in what the changes are, so we look forward to hearing this. Mr. Oliveri.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. If we could, one of my associates would like to pull up a quick presentation. Good evening. It's John DeBella.
Looks all set. Go ahead.
That is it. So we're going to just run through some of the numbers and the what was originally approved and what we're going to be proposing to the city. So it really comes down to, John, if you want to scroll down a little bit, there's been some small changes within the existing footprint of the building, which equates to a total difference in square footage on this project of a negative 82 square feet. So we are reducing the overall size of this building by 80, or this project by 82 square feet. This is shown on this FAR chart of what was originally approved versus what we're going to be proposing. If anybody has any questions about this, we can come back to it. John, if you want to go down to the next slide.
I see a hand up. I would suggest, unless it's important, that I'd like you to finish and we can ask, but if it's important to ask the question while he's going through it and we have the slide before us, go ahead, Councilor Lucas.
Can we go back one? Because Mr. Oliveri said it's a reduction in 82 feet, but I'm looking at the FAR worksheet and it's where, I mean, I'm looking at total gross floor area, 26,000 to 36,000.
Well, that's existing versus.
Oh,
so
you're over.
That's the original sheet that was sent in. So if you look at the
All
column,
set. I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
Proceed.
John, if you'd like to go to the next slide. So on the left-hand side of this slide, it shows the units and the makeup of the building that was approved. It shows anywhere from 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. On the right-hand side, it's going to show you the new unit makeup that we're going to be proposing. John, if you could slide down just a little bit further. So what we did is there was some inefficiencies within the building. There was a lot of common space that was being underutilized. So let me just scroll down because I can't see my numbers here. So the net of this is that we've reduced the common space by about 2,413 square feet. We've reduced the garage space by 551 square feet. That space has been absorbed into the units themselves. And we've increased the bedroom count by a total of 7 bedrooms over the 16 units on the site. Once again, the overall square footage of the entire or total area was a negative 82 square feet. One thing to show on this slide is that each one of the affordable units, which is one of the big conversations in this project, both are 3 bedrooms. Previously, there was a 3-bedroom and there was a 2-bedroom. Right now in this matrix, there are 3 bedrooms in each of the affordable units, which we feel is a bonus to the project. So none of the parking has changed. There was some exterior changes that we're going to be presenting to the Historic Commission next week. But overall, the building envelope, these are some of the floor plans if you want to look at those as well. But overall, the building itself is being reduced in size. So if you want to dive into this, I'm open to answer any questions, but wanted to give really the numbers.
Mr. Oliveri, could you just verbally answer for us whether you expect the 2 IZ units to be in compliance with the ordinance in terms of size and location? And can you describe where they're located and the sizes and all, just so that we can understand that?
Yeah, John, if you go to the Barton slide, which is right there, this is the lower level of the entire Barton house. There is lower level space right there. It's that middle unit. If you slide down, it is the one that's being circled right there. And then, John, slide down one more, and then you have space on that floor as well, third floor. So actually, the unit in the Barton house is set up as a townhouse with 3 bedrooms. So it's a good amount of space. And the one in the Walker Center is on the majority of the space is all on the second floor. It's all in blue there. So there's some space on the first floor, space on the second floor.
So that Barton House unit is not at the basement level as was previously suggested. It's a 3-floor townhouse
Actually,
unit.
4.
That's 4 floors.
It's actually 4 floors. There is some space in the lower level, but all of the bedrooms are above grade and set up as a townhouse. And the one in the the Walker Center is all above grade.
Thank you. This docket item originally said that, or I had said that I would be taking public input, but because this did not get submitted as an official filing yet, it's not a public hearing, and I think we really should wait until people have the time to actually look at the plans and review them thoroughly, as well as planning and ISD to have input. So I'm not going to be taking comments from the public tonight, but I would definitely like to hear questions and comments from the committee. Councilor Laredo.
So I certainly want to reserve any substantive comments till a formal application is filed, but I do think this can be an opportunity to at least provide folks who are interested in the project with a sense of where this is heading without indicating whatsoever that we're going to agree or disagree with that. I think actually, colleagues, I would caution us not to opine one way or the other on anything here because we don't have a formal petition in front of us and we need to be, I think, exceedingly cautious about that. So I just want to understand a couple of things. As I understand it, the footprint of the project remains roughly the same. Is that accurate?
That's correct. John, if you go to the...
You don't have to go any further. I just want to get the basics.
It's actually being reduced in size.
Okay, so that's number one. Number two, you're creating more bedrooms within the project itself, and that's because you're basically reducing a fair amount of common area. Is that also accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. And are you increasing the number of units, or strike that? Are you increasing, strike that as well. Are you changing the total number of units on the project?
No.
Okay. All right. That answers my questions. I think that's very helpful to give us and the public some guidance as to what's going on here. Thank you, Chair Kelly.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo, and I think we all appreciate your recommendations on our opinions at this point, considering nothing has been filed. Again, I'll say that what will happen next, I believe, is that this petitioner will file. We'll download the plans to the NewGov city portal. Planning and ISD will have a chance to meet with them, give their input, review, and it may or may not come back to this committee depending on what happens next. Perhaps they will apply and be granted a request for a consistency ruling that will go to ISD. Perhaps the commissioner will rule or he'll come back to us. Perhaps an amendment is needed. So that's why we're going to hold off on our opinions tonight and not take public comment until we have some more substantive and official information to review. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Oliveri, I was looking at the plans, the ones that you sent us on Friday, and based upon what you showed us, You said in the Walker House, Unit 5 is the affordable unit, and it's 1,250 square feet, 3 bedrooms. But when I look at, okay, it's in front of us right now, the one in yellow, that's Unit 5, I believe. I see 2 bedrooms, not 3.
I believe it's in blue.
I
think John might have been circling the wrong unit.
Well, I'm gonna give you, I'm on the plans that you sent us. Unit 5, I'm looking at it right here. It's in yellow. There's 2 bedrooms, and that's the affordable unit. You haven't submitted anything yet, but I see 2 bedrooms. Your grid that you displayed earlier said it's 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, it is 3 bedrooms. I don't know why that's off, but we'll get that adjusted. That is a bedroom.
Yeah, just
In that lower
align
left.
the plan with the graphic, the chart in the upper
Yeah,
right
yeah.
corner, which does say three.
It is the one in yellow, excuse me, but that is a bedroom in that section over to the left, top left. Right there.
Anything else?
Where?
Right where he's circling.
All right, I'm not the architect, but where do you enter in from? The common hallway or from beneath? Or is that outside?
There's a set of stairs.
No. Let's go. No, go up one. That little small yellow up there on the ground floor.
Yeah, so there's a set of stairs. If you look at that diagram, right, so there's a common hallway there. You enter into the unit there, and then you wrap around where you can see the couch is laid out, and then that set of stairs goes down into this bedroom. So it's the yellow and the yellow.
So you enter there. So where do you enter? Where do you go from outside to inside?
That hallway right there.
Okay, and then you go down the stairs, and then when you go down the stairs, it takes us to the
third bedroom.
Yeah, up over there, and that's a bedroom there?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Yeah, just want to get that labeled so I know to avoid these conversations.
My mistake.
Yeah.
And when everything is uploaded and when if we next review it, we'll have more accurate information and it won't be so confusing. Councillor Block.
Again, just a factual question about the square footage of the 2 affordable housing units. I believe our inclusionary zoning ordinance requires that they be 10% or at least 10% of the total square footage of the project, if I'm remembering that right. Just find a way to illustrate that compliance in your diagrams. That's all, thanks.
Yeah, so these units do meet the ordinance. So just some facts here. The sellable square footage would be around 34,937 square feet. 10% of that must be affordable, which is 3,493. We're providing 3,893. Average 3-bedroom on the market units is about 2,253. We must provide the units at 80% or larger on average, and they're 1802. Our 2 units average 1946. Also, DHCD requires the 3-bedroom units, the guidelines be a minimum of 1,200 square feet, and we're exceeding that. So we feel that these units do meet the ordinance.
Good questions, Councillor Block. And again, if and when this comes back to us, ISD, the zoning department of that, and the planning will have the opportunity to go more thoroughly with a fine-tooth comb over all of these considerations and be sure that the criteria that needs to be met will be met. But I'm glad you answered that question for us tonight, Mr. Oliveri. Anything else, Councillor Block? Anyone else from the committee? Yes, Councillor Laredo. President Lurie.
I'm just going to suggest that we NAN this item, no action necessary, because it is going to be coming back to us as you indicated.
Absolutely. I'm going to let Councilor Block make that motion if he would like. Before he does that, I'd just like to say we did have one hand from the public up, and I had heard from other people today. I want to assure the public that this is not to close off their opportunity to ask questions or have input, to be sure you're looking at accurate, full information and enough time to review that before you speak. So if you had your hand up and I didn't call on you or anyone else, you will definitely have the chance when it's appropriate and the full information is before us. Councilor Block.
If I could just supplement that comment of yours that we're always receptive to letters and emails. And I move no action necessary.
Great. I think we can do a voice vote on that.
Right.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? No, I don't think so either. So this item, which was for an update and discussion, is no action necessary, and we may or may not see you again. You may be back before us for a consistency ruling input or an amendment, or the Inspectional Services Department may think that this is all consistent and go ahead and issue you a building permit, and I think it's one of those three options.
Our plan is to submit for a consistency.
Excuse me?
Our plan is to submit for a consistency ruling, so.
That's something, too, that Planning and ISD will probably evaluate when they look at your application, and they will give you guidance on that, and we will do whatever they tell us to do.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Oliveri. I think we're all done for the night. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.